So now Tom Whiting is going to do art demonstration in digital art.
And I'm going to start out by showing some examples of some of the work that I've done. Not everybody here is familiar with my work, I believe. So I'm going to share my screen a little bit here. And here we go. One of the big appeals of digital art for me was that I can do it anywhere. I did this one on a flight from Florida up to Massachusetts. I first started sketching the clouds and then the wing of the plane, and um, I, you can have your whole art studio just wherever you go, in your iPad or your tablet or whatever. This is a recent self-portrait that I did. I'm trying to change my style a little bit. Um, this is a grouping of sunflowers that I did when I was at the brush. Um, These are some banyan trees in Fort Myers, just across the river from me. Um, at the Ford and Edison Estates. Henry Ford and Thomas Edison used to spend the winters down here. Um, this is an inn that Claire visited during Thanksgiving, and we had a painting session where we just did it together. She did hers in pencil, I think, and I did mine in digital painting. Uh, I've been I've been working on a series of well, I've been doing a series of exercises based on light and color, trying to paint just looking at the color and the light on an object, and um, just bring it a little bit more realistically, even though I'm going away from that. This is another painting that I did on a plane, a flight this year, I think it was. Well, actually, probably 2024, not 2025. The fun thing about painting on a plane is you get turbulence, and it just makes it a little bit more challenging. Um, this is a osprey that I painted recently. There's an osprey in the yard next to mine down here, and it inspired me to do this. And this appeared in a show at the All Gallery that Mary ran. This is a butterfly that I did. It also appeared in that same show.
What about
Uh,
the story about that osprey?
this, I don't know. I probably made it up, so I forgot. I lie.
Okay. I thought you showed it at the Whistler House, or you tried to show it
No,
at.
no, that's not this one. I'll be
Okay.
getting to that painting soon. This is a painting of the well, it was the start of a painting of the old Werther, and I'm showing this. I wish I had the. I don't think the two paintings show up together, but I changed this to a night scene, and that was also for a show at the Arts League of Lowell. This is a college friend, but a recent picture of her. This is another light and color study of an egg. This is one of a pen that I did just, I think it was last week or the week before. This is a Lowell one that I did recently. It's the courtyard outside the brush, in between the brush and the National Park Visitor Center. Trying to use more vibrant color and well, just like I did with the self-portrait. Uh, this this is a Florida picture. This is a group of ibises that visited my yard not that long ago, and it appeared in the show down here. This is just another light and color exercise, coffee cup. This is one that appeared in a members show at the brush. Um, this is a scene from up on Bailey Island, Maine. Cribstone Bridge in the background and a schooner named the Alert. in the foreground. This is my 4x4 from last year. Um, I did it digitally. The one I did this year, I just did with acrylics, but it was an interesting exercise doing it as a digital piece and wrapping the canvas with the finished piece. This actually doesn't show the whole thing. I extended it around the edges so it could wrap around the canvas. This is a triptych that I did for a show at the Brush. It's sort of a self-portrait. This piece measures about 4 feet tall by 6 feet wide. This is a friend's dog that passed away. This is the one Claire was referring to. I entered this into a show at the Whistler, and it didn't get accepted. And so then entered it in a regional show in Westford, and it won first place. So you never know what's going to be accepted as what one tastes differ, I guess is what I'm trying to say. Uh, just a bridge in North Chelmsford. My favorite beer up in Massachusetts. I was just copying the style of Jack Jack. I can't pronounce his last name. He's a Scottish artist, but he has an Italian last name. And I was just I'm really struck by his style, and I just copied a section of one of his pieces. And this is the piece that I changed into the night scene of the old Worthern, uh, based on the earlier piece that I showed. And in doing digital, it's really easy to do something like that um, without messing. I kept most of the piece there and did glazes over it, and I was able to keep both pieces intact. This is a well, he used to be a familiar face in downtown Lowell. Uh, I occasionally do portraits of unhoused people. Um, Another one for a brush show. Sunset over Chesapeake Bay. I got fascinated with water for a while. This is just some crashing waves, ripples. Uh, this is my Aunt Dan. She's been a really good patron of mine. This is another one from up in Maine. That's that same boat, the Alert, on Martinique Sound. This is a rowboat in Garrison Cove, which is where the Alert was in the other picture. And this is my uncle. He was my real estate appraisal mentor. He just recently passed away. Um, this is one from an all show. My favorite place. This is White Mountain in Rock Springs, Wyoming. Uh, Lots of mystical stuff supposedly happens there. Um, but I was in Rock Springs in February of, I believe it was 2017. And I just fell in love with the place. And this is a Haystack Rock off the coast of Oregon, or on the coast of Oregon. And it's that. Now I'm having a sorry about this. It's my lack of expertise in Zoom. It's showing through here. Are we back to normal now?
Yes, we are.
Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to do sort of a hybrid, sort of a digital project. I did a sketch of a flamingo about a week ago, and I'm going to do a stylized flamingo painting based on that sketch. And that's one of the cool things you can do with digital. I did the sketch in one of my sketchbooks that's somewhere in here, and took a picture of it with my tablet and just imported it into a sketchbook, which is the program that I'm going to be using in my demonstration. Sketchbook is a free program that you can use on Android, iOS, Mac, and PC. And it's, well, at least the iOS and Android versions are free, and they work the Mac. I mean, the Android and iOS versions work almost identically to each other. There's just some slight wording change differences in the menus, but they work almost identically. Um, so I'm gonna, oh, here we go. I'm gonna share my screen again. And I have a piece sort of prepped, started here. Can everybody see my screen here?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So this is the piece that I drew last week, and it's in one layer. This is one of the things that's really cool about digital art. You can work in multiple layers without damaging the stuff. And if you're working on one layer, you don't change anything in any of the other layers, which, as long as you remember to work in the correct layers, it's, I find it to be really great, an advantage over working, um, in real media. I still work in real media though. I want people to know that. And what I just did there is I want to work with a really black ink. I'm using on the left hand side of my screen. There's a bunch of tools, pencils. Let me go up here. Pencils and brushes and airbrushes and blending tools, uh, pens with nibs, erasers, and I'm using a pen with nibs right now. And I'm going to be tracing over my sketch here in a separate layer. Over on the right-hand side of the screen, hopefully everybody can see down at the bottom, there's a sketch that I'm working on just in miniature, and then a white box above it with a blue square that shows that that layer is highlighted, and that's the layer that I'm going to be working on right now. And sometimes I find now that I'm a little bit older, my hands aren't as steady as they used to be. And it can't have anything to do with me being nervous of giving a presentation. It's just my frailty. So you can see that I'm drawing over the flamingo here, and I can make the layer underneath go away. Well, I can make any layer disappear by turning it off. And I can check to make sure I'm doing all the areas that I want to do. And this isn't the way that I work all the time. Sometimes I'll do a sketch first. Sometimes I'll start out just painting.
Tom, are you using your finger to do these lines, or you're doing in something
Oh,
else?
let me show what I'm actually using. I can get this to. I'm using a stylus to do this. You can use a finger if you want to, but I have a bunch of different styluses. Right now I'm using an Android tablet by Samsung. It's one of the S series. And S series tablets come with an S Pen included. And their S Pens use the same technology as Wacom tablets, which are the standard for digital art, pretty much. Uh, with uh, with an iPad, you have to buy your pencil separately. It seems like they've come down in price recently, but it's like up to $130 extra just for the pen on top of the price of the tablet. The tablets are comparable in price to each other, depending on the quality and the power. Um, but right now I'm using an S Pen by Statler, who makes artist pencils. And it feels like an artist pencil when I'm gripping it. The tip of it is just like a regular S Pen, which is sort of rubberized, and it gives you a little bit of friction against the glass screen. With an iPad, when it and Apple Pencil, the Apple Pencil has a hard plastic tip, and the iPad screen is glass, so there's a bit of slippage. And what a lot of people do is get a screen protector that has some friction to it. And I found that works really well with an Apple Pencil and a paper-like screen protector. It can feel like you're writing on paper, drawing on paper.
Did
Uh,
you do
the,
your original drawing on a piece of paper, or did you do it in a digital manner?
I I did the original drawing in a sketchbook. But that's not how I always work. Sometimes I do a digital sketch right on the tablet. Back when I lived up in Lowell, I would bring my tablet to like Warp and Weft or Tremonte and draw while I was there with my tablet. But sometimes it's just depending on the lighting conditions and such. Sometimes it's easier, to do the drawing with traditional media, pencils or pens. And um, right now, I just selected an eraser tool. Um, and erasers in digital art, they don't work like, say you're working in pen in natural media. Trying to erase pen lines can be a real pain in the neck, but an eraser will work on anything, paint, ink, whatever, just the same. And so I think I have everything that I want traced right now. And so now I'm going to start painting. So I'm going to create another layer. I'm going to move that layer below where I have the inked in lines, or I'm going to try to. There we go. And I'm going to paint in that layer. And the reason I do that is because it makes it easier to not go outside the lines. It's like coloring in a coloring book. And this is the color selection tool here. And it has a history of the last colors I was using. And earlier today, I was practicing this demo just so I have some of these same colors, well, some of the colors that I intend to use. But there are multiple ways to select colors with digital art. You can have a color wheel. You can have a palette. There are multiple palettes that come with Sketchbook. You can have like all your yellows, all your oranges, reds, so on and so on. Um, there, there are a bunch of palettes based on landscapes and planets and skin tones. And so one of the other advantages that I find for digital art is you don't have to mix your own colors. You can, but you don't have to because you get provided with pretty much an unlimited palette. And sometimes mixing colors can be intimidating. It's an important thing to know how to do, but if you can save some time by not having to mix your own colors.
Did you
Um,
use a different tool to make wider lines? When
okay, I over on the left-hand side, I selected one of the paintbrushes. I'm sorry, I should have said what I was doing when I was doing it. Right now, that one is highlighted in blue, just like the layer that I'm working in is highlighted in blue on the right-hand side of the screen. And I should probably explain the stuff on the top of the screen. Uh, let's say I made a mistake. This is a tool that I try not to use. I try to restrain from using, but there's an undo tool and there's also a redo tool. There's uh, a selection tool where you can move what you selected around. Um, I I could probably give a little demonstration of that later. There's a fill tool. You can fill in with solid colors or gradients. There's a ruler tool. Click on that and see if anything happens. There we go. There's this tool here. I hope you guys can see it. When you have this tool on your canvas, you can only do straight lines. You can only draw where the edges of the ruler are. Um, and there are various rulers and protractors and things that you can use if you want to have help doing your lines. I do that. I do use those tools sometimes. Um, there's a symmetry tool. Like if you're doing a face and you're using vertical symmetry, you could just do one side of the face. Whatever you paint on the right-hand side of the screen will show up on the left hand of the screen opposite, whatever you, and vice versa. You can do radials, you can do it in horizontal symmetry. So whatever you're painting on the top shows up on the bottom. I guess that would help with reflections. I've never used it that way. There's radial symmetry, which I use sometimes to do sort of abstract things. You can do flowers really quickly, but this piece doesn't involve any of that stuff. So uh, if any of you guys take any of my classes, I'll teach how to use those tools. So right now, I'm using a pretty skinny brush, so it'll take a long time to paint these bigger areas. One of the tools that I use quite a bit is the puck. That's what I'm moving around right now, the brush and color puck. The top of it, you can control aspects of the brush. You can make the brush bigger. You can make the brush skinnier. You can make the brush more and less opaque. Right now, it's 100% flow, which means it's completely opaque. But I can bring it down to where it's less opaque, and the background will show through. But for this painting, I don't want it. Whoops! I just showed what I can do with the thing, but I don't want to have the brush be. I don't want to have the brush be transparent at all. I'm going to go back and grab the color that I was just using, which is a nice feature because I just changed the color, which I'll show you. You can make your color lighter or darker. Can make your color more saturated. Right now it's 100% saturated, or less saturated, bring it down to a gray, or anywhere in between. I'm just going to fill in the sky. If I did these lines nice and tight, I could have used the fill tool and just um, filled in the color. But there's a lot of gaps in these lines, and the color would go everywhere if I tried to do that. Now, before I do any shading, I'm going to start working on this guy's legs. And I need to make my brush skinnier. And to show that one of the legs is a little bit behind the other, I take a little bit of the saturation away. So it looks like it's a little bit in shadow. I'll make this guy's beak a little bit brighter. By the end, I should end up with a flamingo that looks a little bit like a cartoon character. And the tips of flamingos' beaks tend to be a very dark color. From what I understand, I haven't seen a real flamingo yet, even though I live down here. Uh, in this part of Florida, flamingos have became a little bit rare for a while. I think it was after it was a hurricane a few years ago, and they're just starting to come back. Whoops. Right now, I'm using a blending tool to just spread the color out to the edges. Now I'm going to do a little bit of shading. Adding some light coming into the top of the flamingo and the pieces of the flamingo that are facing skyward.
When you're using those colors, Tom, why is it that it's not covering the black lines?
The reason they're not covering the black lines is because if you look over here on the right-hand side of the screen, there are three layers that I'm working in. The bottom layer, which isn't showing, which was the original sketch, the next layer up, which is the color, and the layer above that is the line work that I did. And so the line work sits above the color, and it doesn't get affected by what I do in the color layer. And that's why if I move the line layer down below the color layer, a lot of the lines go away because they're covered up. But you can move your layers around, pretty much at will. And now one of the things, like one thing that you can do, and I recommend that you do it if you go into digital art, if you don't want any changes to happen to a layer that you have the way that you want it, you lock that layer. And then when you try to paint in it, the app doesn't let you paint in it. And the reason I was showing you that was because I just painted in the wrong layer. And that happens once in a while, and that can be a frustrating part of digital art. But eventually, one thing I try to do is just get everything down to one layer, just like, an oil painting or an acrylic or a drawing. But at the early, when I'm working on a painting, usually in the early stages, I do work with multiple layers. This guy has some flaws and whatever, but he's looking to be just about done. And now I'm going to do something that I find really neat in digital art. And I'm going to be working on the background. Usually when I do a painting with natural media, I work on the background closer to the beginning. But now I'm doing it at the end because I can do things in digital art that you can't do in natural media. Just
We
like,
have,
yeah,
yeah, we have a question from the group, from
yep,
Mary actually, asking to show how you move the layers.
okay.
It's very small on our screen, so perhaps you could demonstrate one more time.
Yep. Um, I'm gonna move the line layer. Right now I grabbed it with the stylus. You can do it with your finger as well. And I'm gonna drag it down so it's below the color layer. Now I'm gonna move the color layer. You can do it either way. I'm gonna
On
move
the
the color
right-hand
layer
side,
down.
yeah,
What?
on the
On
right-hand
the right,
side.
yes, on the right-hand bar. So I'll do that again. If you look at the right-hand bar, I'm gonna grab the line art. Can you see that layer moving around?
I can.
Okay, and now I'm going to drag it down, put it under the color layer. And it's really simple. Sometimes it's hard to grab the layer in the first place, but once it's not that hard to get the hang of it. Even I can do
Thanks.
it. No problem. So now I'm just going to pick a nice Florida color for the water that the flamingo's standing in. And I'm going to change my brush to it's called a glaze brush. It works sort of like a glaze in traditional painting. You can it's nice and soft, and you can control the opacity. Well, I like the how you can control the opacity of this brush. It just it's you can do subtle things with it as opposed to some of the other brushes where it's a lot bolder. So I'm just going to paint some water through here. And I'm working in the wrong layer. And that's when the undo button comes in handy. I should have been working in the layer under the current color layer. And I'm not sure if everybody noticed, but the reason I could tell was because I was trying to paint behind the flamingo, but I was painting right over the flamingo. Now when I go, it's almost like, well, I'm painting behind it. It feels like cheating when you first start doing this, but it makes my life so much easier. And it's almost like painting. Well, it looks like you're painting with watercolors or something like that. In this app, uh, even if you are working in watercolors, they don't act like real watercolors. But I do have an app for the PC that also works in the Mac that watercolors work very similar to watercolors. When you, I, I don't have time to show it in this demo, but
Tom, I have a question regarding what you just did.
yeah.
Sometimes when you went back and forth,
Hmm.
uh, it created an overlap that we can see clearly on the screen, and sometimes it did not. How did you how did you do that?
The way you do that is, well, I'm using a brush with the opacity is very, very low. And so if I don't pick up my brush and I just run it along the screen, it'll stay a solid color. Once I pick up my brush and go over that other stroke, the portion that goes over the other stroke gets darker. Like I can keep making this become more and more intense by going over it again and again.
Thanks.
Well, and for like doing things like water and such, I found this by mistake. I'm going to use a variation on the oranges that I used for the legs and the beak for the flamingo to create the sand, and do something very similar. Right now I'm just going over, not lifting up the pen. So I want to have this first, I should have made it a little bit bigger, but I want to have this first layer just be sort of solid. But then there will be places where the sand is closer to the water and it'll be darker. Wet sand tends to be darker. And there might be some places where there are shadows. Now I changed my brush again to a blending brush. This one's called hair, and it's supposed to make it easier to do fur and whatnot, but I just find that it makes a nice soft blend. There are other blending brushes that are a little bit sharper. And then in the background here, there's going to be some sort of vegetation. So I'm going to be using not a sky color, but I'll pick up the brush here and there. Just let the paint, well, the digital paint do its own thing. Some of these things are a lot like Bob Ross sort of things, just they just happen. You can have some intention to what you're doing. And once you know how to use the different tools, the intention can be pretty strong, but the way you learn to use it is just play. I guess pretty much like you do with any art. If you want to have fun with it, you play, learn how to use the tools, or learn what the tools do. Um, and I find that I probably use tools a little bit differently than some other artist might, just messing around. Are we doing okay for time?
Yes, we are. It's 7:15, so we still have plenty of time.
Okay. I just continue to make adjustments, select my colors. Um, add a little bit more variation to the water until I feel like it's right. This is when I'm doing a realistic piece. I'll continue to look at the reference material. And when I first did this, I was looking at a reference, but I sort of memorized the reference. So uh, it's like drawing a cartoon character, sort of. Just sort of having fun. My dog Petra is getting a little bit antsy because Linda usually comes home around 7. So while I'm painting this, I don't think you could see because I'm sharing my screen, but she's climbing up on me as I'm doing this. And one of the cool things about digital paint is you don't have to worry about getting paint on the dog or spilling it and one of the best things is when you're done, the cleanup is very, very simple. You don't have to wash your brushes. Although I have washed a stylus or two through the washing machine, and it's amazing they still work after they go through the washer and the dryer, at least most of the time. I think the flamingo could use a bit more shading. I'm gonna pick the regular brush again. I'm
Someone's
going to show you another thing. I'm going to select the color. This time, I'm going to select it using my finger, holding it on the screen. I'm going to try to do that. I should be able to hold my finger on the screen, but I think it might have something to do with Zoom, that it's not working quite the way it usually
you're
does. But
but,
when I put my
um
finger on yep,
you're on the flamingo layer,
yes,
but you seem
that's where I want to be.
but you
And when I
point
put
to an area that's outside the flamingo.
Yeah, that's because this is Zoom doesn't seem to be working with this particular aspect of the tool.
I see.
So what I'm going to do instead of that is I'm going to go to the color wheel tool. Hopefully this will work. And there's an eyedropper. Usually you can get the eyedropper to, there we go. Let me try that again. Okay.
So there's a question that you might not be ready to answer right now during the demonstration, but someone's asking, how do you get your painting from the screen to a canvas?
To a canvas.
Yeah, how do you print it?
What I, I'll show that after I'm done with this,
Okay.
definitely. And I can explain a little bit about it while I'm painting here. Um, if you're familiar with computers at all, which not everybody is, but it's very similar to when you print out any other kind of document.
Do you need a
And there
special kind
and
of
just like
printer?
what's that?
Do you need a special kind of printer?
You don't. You don't need a special kind of printer. Um, it depends on the quality that you're willing to put up with. Um, I have one printer. I think I bought it for $129 when it was brand new, and it's probably over 10 years old, and it works just fine. I can print on photo paper. Um, it's just an HP printer. And then I have another printer that I spent closer to $500 on. It's a Canon printer, and it does a really, really good job. And that's what I print most of my finished work on. But your printer doesn't need to be that high a quality, depending on where you're going to show or what you're going to do. If you're going to be making a poster for an event or something like that, or um, you're just going to print a photographic quality sort of a thing, the inkjet printer that you have at home will probably work just fine.
Yeah, the question is, how do you print it on a canvas?
On a canvas,
Is that
I,
is that
I,
possible?
it is possible. I have some canvas media that I've printed on. You can do that, or you can. I found that a little bit frustrating printing on that. Um, just seems limiting. Um, but you can. There are services where you could, like, if you want to pay somebody else to do it, then you don't have to worry about having materials in stock. Um, like if you're printing on canvas, you need to have some canvas that's made to go through a printer, and that can be a little bit expensive. And you usually have to buy more than one sheet at a time, which makes it more expensive. But if you go to a print shop, they'll have that kind of media, and I mean, it'll be more expensive per print, but it'll be a less frustrating process altogether. So, like, for some of the art shows that I've been in, I I haven't printed on canvas, but I send my work out to be printed by a professional printer for my larger pieces because I don't have a big format printer. Well, not as big as some of the pieces that I've printed out. Uh, but I save myself the expense of buying that larger printer and having a professional that knows what they're doing print it. I hope that explains it a little bit. Um, anyways, I think I'm pretty much as done as I am. I'll show a piece that I did earlier today. Or the other day. So pretty much the same thing. I used some more intense colors and whatnot. Um, but that's pretty much that. And then how I got to there, up in the upper left, well, in the leftmost position on the top bar, you have access to the gallery and places to import and export your files. And usually, if I print from one of these programs, what I actually do is I'll export it as a file. Because I don't think Sketchbook has a facility to print directly. not the Android version or well, the iPad version might have a way to print directly, but I don't think the Android does. But uh, if I went into another graphics program, I could open up the file that I just saved and print it out. But I wasn't really prepared for that. I'm sorry. I think I'm pretty much done with the demo of the Flamingo, and if anybody has more questions, I'll be happy to answer.
There's one more question. Can you resize and not distort the image?
Yes, you can resize it and distort it, or resize it and not distort it. In the top menu bar, use the leftmost tool. Well, the leftmost item, you can edit your canvas. And in there, you can change your canvas size or you can change your image size. Right now, this image is 9 inches by 12 inches at 300 pixels per inch. And the two dimensions are linked to each other. So if I change 9 to 12, the 12 will go up to 16. I don't think I actually changed the size just then because I didn't do the whole process, but need to get this out of the way. Anyways, the answer is yes. But you can also unlink, like let's say you want to distort the image, you can unlink the two dimensions and change one dimension without changing the other. And you can stretch it out in one direction or the other. And there are also tools if I had this all merged together, I could use the selection tool. Which layer am I in? Probably not a good layer, but I could use the selection tool, then use a distortion tool where I could, manipulate it.
So we have another question.
Yes.
Can you show us the actual tools? It says in parentheses, Penn and Talbot. So I guess the physical tool, maybe that's the question. I think I'm going to stop the recording at this time so that
Okay.
if you want to show us the actual tool.
I'll just pick a color here, I think. So this is the glaze tool. It's the second tool down. It looks, I don't know if that's the one you're thinking about.
No, it was below the pencils.
Okay.
Under the brushes, when you click on the brush and hold, it gave you a display of different strokes. Maybe it was further down on your tools. There. All those jiggly ones down at the bottom. What are
Those
those?
are ones that I Sketchbook has a resource, their website, where you can get bunches of free brushes that don't come with it.
Okay.
Like the one I just selected, it's a
Oh,
sort of a foliage brush.
yeah, okay. Another,
Um,
Tom, are you working with Sketchbook or Sketchbook Plus? Whatever the upgrade is.
yeah, I'm working with the full program.
What's
I
it
probably
called?
should have said, as full disclosure, I've beta tested this So I didn't have to pay for the full program. I think it's $10 to get
Yeah, I know it's
everything.
reasonable, but I couldn't
Yeah.
remember what it was called.
Yeah, it's I think it's just I think it's a
Premium bundle.
sketchbook.
Okay.
Sketchbook with the premium bundle.
Okay. Thank you.